The Renaissance, a time of incredible rebirth and transformation, was not just an artistic revolution but a battleground of ideas, fierce competition, and daring individuals who dared to defy convention. In a world steeped in medieval beliefs and centuries of stagnation, a new generation of thinkers, artists, and explorers would ignite a fire that would forever alter the course of history. The story begins with a shocker. Amid the cathedrals and castles of Europe, the printing press, seemingly just a simple invention, explodes onto the scene, triggering an intellectual wildfire. What was once a carefully guarded secret, the printing press is now the tool that will spread revolutionary ideas across the continent. This is not just the dawn of literature, it's the dawn of rebellion. Ideas about faith, power, and science are no longer confined to the privileged few. Suddenly, the masses can read, and question, the established order. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. In the shadows of the Italian city-states, a bitter battle for supremacy is taking place. In Florence, Leonardo da Vinci is more than just a genius, he's a spy, an inventor, and a philosopher all in one. His notebooks, filled with visionary designs, hold secrets that could change the way humans live and think. Yet, his most controversial idea, a flying machine, might not be just a dream. What if Leonardo had stumbled upon something beyond his time? Then, there's the story of Galileo Galilei, who defies both the church and centuries of tradition with his telescope. He doesn't just see the stars, he sees the truth, one that could topple centuries of dogma. But the twist? Galileo's discoveries weren't just about astronomy, they were about a war of ideologies between science and religion that would shape the future of human understanding. And while Europe was grappling with these mind-bending concepts, the age of exploration takes a dangerous turn. Navigators set out for the New World, but what they bring back isn't just treasure, it's the realization that the world is not as small as they once thought. Christopher Columbus and his journey set in motion not just an expansion of trade, but a collision of civilizations. Could these so-called discoveries actually be a destructive force for indigenous cultures? The twist is that what was heralded as progress would leave scars that are still felt today. As these innovations unfold, an unsettling truth begins to emerge. The Renaissance was as much about division and conflict as it was about progress. Machiavelli's ruthless political theories, Shakespeare's exploration of human nature, and the explosive rise of individualism were all seeds of a world where old power structures would crumble, and new, unpredictable ones would rise in their place. In the end, the Renaissance wasn't just a time of rebirth, it was a time when everything humanity thought it knew was turned upside down, forcing people to question everything, faith, science, and even their own place in the world. 1. The birth of rebellion. In the dimly lit halls of Europe's towering cathedrals, where incense and whispers of the divine once ruled, an ancient silence is about to be broken. For centuries, the Church has held the reins of power, controlling the flow of knowledge, safeguarding it behind its towering stone walls. Scholars' works, guarded in private libraries, are filtered and censored, their truths bound by holy decrees. But all of that is about to change. Amid the medieval darkness, a humble invention, the printing press, emerges as an unlikely catalyst. What seemed like an ordinary tool for mass-producing text would soon prove to be the spark that ignites a revolution of ideas. As the press grinds away, ink is applied to parchment, and the first books roll off its press, but these are not sacred manuscripts. They are dangerous, subversive works that threaten the very foundation of the Church's dominion over Europe. The first to emerge from this revolution is not the Bible, but pamphlets filled with radical new ideas. Martin Luther's 95 Theses, boldly criticizing the Church's practices, find their way into the hands of peasants and scholars alike, spreading like wildfire across towns and villages. These are not mere copies of sacred texts, they are weapons of rebellion, challenging everything the Church has spent centuries building. For the first time, secrets that were once locked away in the vaults of the Vatican spill into the public sphere. Forbidden knowledge, long suppressed by the Church, is now accessible to anyone with the courage to read. Philosophy, science, and art are no longer controlled by the Church's rigid grip, they become free to be questioned, analyzed, and expanded upon by anyone, anywhere. As ink meets paper, the words begin to pulse with life, carrying with them the charge of a new intellectual awakening. The old order, based on obedience and submission, finds itself under siege. A battle of ideologies begins, one that pits the ancient teachings of the Church against the thirst for freedom, enlightenment, and the pursuit of truth. The world, for the first time in centuries, stands at the edge of something greater, an era of rebellion, transformation, and, above all, change. And as the press continues to churn out pages, the question remains, who will control the future of knowledge? The answer will come with a price, one that will be paid in ways no one yet understands. The birth of rebellion has begun, and the intellectual wildfire is spreading faster than anyone can contain. 2. Leonardo's hidden agenda in the vibrant streets of Renaissance Florence. Beneath the surface of his famed genius, Leonardo da Vinci is not merely an artist or scientist, he is a man of many faces, each more enigmatic than the last. To the world, he is the mastermind behind masterpieces like the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. But in the shadows, he serves a far darker role, one that few suspect. Leonardo is a spy, a secret agent working for the most powerful families of Italy. He isn't just sketching the human form, he's plotting the future of warfare, technology, and politics. His notebooks, overflowing with diagrams of anatomical studies and artistic compositions, also hide dangerous inventions and cryptic codes. These are not mere thoughts, they are blueprints for machines of war, for instruments that could change the balance of power in Europe forever. The powerful Medici family, ever embroiled in intrigue, have trusted Leonardo with a mission far beyond art. He is gathering intelligence for them, infiltrating courtrooms, and uncovering the secrets of Italy's enemies. But it's not just the designs for military weapons or siege engines that set him apart. Hidden deep within his sketches is something far more unsettling, a vision that could shake the foundations of the world. Among his drawings is a design for a flying machine, an invention so advanced, so ahead of its time, that it defies belief. Its wings, made from intricate mechanisms, could allow humans to soar through the skies, an idea so fantastical that no one has dared to dream it before. But Leonardo's ambition goes further. He isn't just dreaming of flight, he's imagining a world where humans can take control of the very skies. But there's a darker truth lurking behind these incredible ideas. Leonardo's flying machine isn't merely an artistic expression, it's a weapon. A weapon that could shift the power dynamics of Europe. What if this invention could be used not just for art or exploration, but for warfare, to outpace and outmaneuver armies, giving its creator an unmatched advantage? The twist? The Vatican is aware of what Leonardo is trying to create, and they are terrified. The Church, desperate to maintain its dominance over Europe, will stop at nothing to suppress this knowledge. Leonardo's invention could empower the secular world, enabling rival powers to challenge the Church's hold. If the Vatican learns the true nature of his designs, they will do whatever it takes to destroy him and his work, before it ever sees the light of day. Leonardo, caught between his allegiances to powerful families and his own visionary genius, faces a moral quandary. Will he reveal the flying machine to the world, despite the looming threat of the Church? Or will he hide his greatest creation, burying it in secret so that no one, neither ally nor adversary, can exploit it for their own gain? In Florence, where the winds of revolution are beginning to stir, Leonardo's hidden agenda is not just a matter of art and invention, it's a battle for control over the future itself. 3. Galileo's daring truth. In the early dawn of the 17th century, Galileo Galilei stands on the precipice of a discovery that could shatter the very fabric of the known world. Armed with nothing but a rudimentary telescope and an unyielding thirst for truth, he peers into the cosmos, a universe vast and unknown, and makes a revelation that will change everything. The Earth does not sit at the center of the universe, it orbits the sun, as nature intended. What began as a simple observation of the night sky becomes an earth-shattering truth, a truth that will challenge the Church's centuries-old teachings. For millennia, the Catholic Church has held dominion over not only faith but also knowledge, dictating the truth of the cosmos. But Galileo's findings contradict the very foundation of Christian doctrine, which places Earth at the center of creation, as described in the Bible. The universe, it turns out, is not created with humanity at its core, and this revelation threatens to unravel everything the Church has preached for generations. But the twist? Galileo's observations go far beyond the mere stars and planets. In his work, he begins to see a deeper truth, one that speaks to the very nature of power, control, and human understanding. What he uncovers is more than just celestial mechanics. It's the realization that truth itself is being manipulated, hidden behind layers of power, and controlled by those who seek to maintain their dominance over the masses. Galileo's work begins to question not just the stars, but the authority that defines reality. In exposing the cosmos, he starts to unravel the foundations of earthly power. As his findings spread across Europe, Galileo's defiance of both science and religion becomes an act of rebellion. His allegiance is tested, not just by the Church, but by powerful factions throughout Italy and beyond. With each new discovery, he becomes a target of persecution, and the stakes rise higher. As the Church moves to silence him, the question becomes not just about what he's discovered, but about who controls knowledge and truth. Galileo's once quiet world of observation transforms into a battlefield of ideologies. The twist? The greatest danger to Galileo might not come from the religious establishment but from the very intellectual circles that claimed to seek truth, a struggle between freedom of thought and the crushing weight of conformity. As his enemies close in, Galileo faces a heart-wrenching choice. Will he stand by his discoveries, risking everything, his career, his life, and the future of science itself? Or will he bow to the pressure of authority and bury the truths he's uncovered? In the end, Galileo is not just a scientist, he becomes a symbol of the eternal battle between truth and power, a war that will shape the destiny of mankind for centuries to come. 4. The Silent War of Ideologies. As Galileo's discoveries spread like wildfire, the tension between science and religion reaches a boiling point. What was once a quiet intellectual pursuit becomes a full-scale war of ideologies, each side fiercely defending its version of truth. The Church, with its centuries of authority, sees Galileo's revelations not merely as a challenge to the heavens, but as an existential threat to its own power over Europe. The cosmos, once ruled by divine design, is now exposed as a vast, impersonal system, a universe in which humanity is not at the center, and the Church's role as the divine interpreter of truth is questioned. The twist? The Church's response is far more insidious than mere censorship. Rather than merely silencing Galileo and his followers, they begin to manipulate the very institutions of knowledge and power, ensuring that no challenge to their authority can ever take root again. Universities, once centers of intellectual exploration, are turned into breeding grounds for conformity. Scholars who dare question the established order are excommunicated, discredited, or worse, thrown into dungeons. The Church's reach stretches beyond the pulpits and confessionals, infiltrating the very institutions that were supposed to be the guardians of knowledge and wisdom. Behind closed doors, a silent war is being waged, and the weapons are not just books, but lives. Philosophers, mathematicians, and scientists who dared to embrace Galileo's worldview find themselves hunted down, forced into hiding, or silenced by a brutal, unseen hand. Some are dragged into the depths of the Inquisition, where confessions are extracted under threat of torture. Others mysteriously disappear in the night, their work erased from history. The quest for truth becomes a deadly game of chess, with every move monitored by the Church, every advance in knowledge met with retribution. Yet, even as the Church tightens its grip, a resistance begins to form, operating in secret, communicating through hidden symbols and whispered rumors. Scholars and philosophers, once divided by their competing ideas, now unite in a covert network dedicated to preserving and spreading Galileo's work. The stakes are no longer academic, they are survival. What began as a fight for intellectual freedom becomes a fight for life itself, as the Church uses its immense power to crush the seeds of a new era of thought. But the Church's manipulation goes deeper. The very fabric of knowledge is being rewritten, not by truth, but by those who control it. Libraries and manuscripts are burned, records falsified, and histories rewritten to preserve the dominance of the Church. The true essence of knowledge becomes a battle of who controls the narrative, and with each passing day, the Church ensures its dominance over both the body and mind of Europe. In this silent war, the world is split between those who dare to know the truth and those who will stop at nothing to preserve a lie. And as Galileo's disciples fight to protect the flame of knowledge, the question looms, who will win this war, faith in the unseen, or the dangerous pursuit of knowledge? The stakes couldn't be higher, and the price of defiance could be more than just personal, it could be the cost of an entire future. 5. The Age of Exploration turns dark. In 1492, Christopher Columbus embarks on a journey that will echo through the ages. With the promise of untold wealth and glory, he sails westward across the vast Atlantic, seeking a new route to the riches of Asia. His ship, the Santa Maria, cuts through the unknown, driven by ambition and the hope of securing his place in history. When he finally lands on the shores of what he believes to be Asia, the world holds its breath in awe. The New World is discovered. But what Columbus brings back isn't just gold and treasure, it is a revelation that will forever alter the course of human history. The twist? What is hailed as the discovery of new land soon reveals itself to be a collision of civilizations, two worlds that, until now, had existed in complete isolation. The indigenous peoples of the Americas, with their rich cultures, traditions, and societies, now face the destructive forces of European colonization. What began as a search for wealth becomes the start of a devastating era of conquest, slavery, and cultural erasure. As Columbus and his successors continue their voyages, the promises of prosperity and progress become empty words for the native populations. Entire civilizations are ravaged, their peoples enslaved, their lands stolen. The Age of Exploration, once a symbol of human curiosity and ambition, becomes a dark chapter of imperialism, exploitation, and violence. What was once thought to be a peaceful exchange of cultures quickly turns into a brutal struggle for dominance, with entire societies being decimated by European diseases, warfare, and forced labor. But there is a hidden truth lurking beneath Columbus's celebrated legacy. His true intentions were far more complex and morally ambiguous than history has led us to believe. Columbus, driven not just by the promise of riches but by the desire to expand Spain's empire, had more than exploration in mind. His mission was a carefully orchestrated strategy to claim, conquer, and convert the lands he discovered in the name of the Spanish crown and the Catholic faith. His letters, filled with glowing reports of the native subjugation, reveal an unsettling truth. Columbus saw the indigenous people not as equals, but as obstacles to be conquered and converted. This revelation casts a shadow over Columbus's legacy, forcing us to reconsider the true cost of his discovery. The land he found was not a blank canvas waiting to be painted with European ideals. It was a thriving world with its own civilizations, complex systems, and cultures. The New World was not new, it was ancient, and its destruction began the moment Columbus set foot upon its shores. What had been celebrated as a monumental achievement in human history becomes a tragic collision of worlds, one that ignites centuries of global conflict. The aftermath of Columbus's voyages continues to echo throughout history, leaving scars that endure to this day, as the wounds of colonization still affect the indigenous peoples of the Americas. The age of exploration, with all its promises of discovery and progress, is revealed to be a story of destruction, power, and the unsettling legacy of conquest. As history unfolds, the question remains, was Columbus a visionary hero, or a conqueror whose ambitions unleashed an irreversible wave of devastation? The true story is darker than anyone could have anticipated, and it challenges everything we thought we knew about one of the most famous voyages in history. 6. The unraveling of power. In the heart of Renaissance Florence, where political intrigue and power struggles shaped the fate of the city-states, Niccolò Machiavelli sits in his study, quill in hand, crafting what would become one of the most infamous works in political philosophy, The Prince. At first glance, it appears to be little more than a straightforward guide to ruling, a handbook for kings and princes on how to maintain power through cunning, ruthlessness, and strategic alliances. Machiavelli's advice is harsh, pragmatic, and chilling, urging rulers to be prepared to do whatever it takes to hold on to their dominion, even if it means betrayal, manipulation, and bloodshed. But the twist? The Prince is not just political theory, it is a coded manifesto for a new world order. Hidden between the lines of his advice, Machiavelli leaves subtle clues, obscure references, and deliberate ambiguities that suggest something far more dangerous than a simple treatise on power. His true intentions are not about advising the rulers on how to stay in power, rather, he is subtly engineering the collapse of the very empire he serves. As Italy teeters on the edge of political instability, the powerful scramble to decipher Machiavelli's work, each one believing that its wisdom will ensure their ascendancy. The Medicis, the Borgia, and countless other families pore over the pages, interpreting his words as tactical advice for consolidating control. But as they implement his teachings, they are unwittingly following a blueprint that pushes Italy toward a catastrophic series of events, a web of chaos, betrayal, and shifting alliances that will eventually engulf the entire region. The city of Florence, once a beacon of Renaissance culture and learning, becomes a hotbed of power plays and shifting loyalties, with families and rulers tearing each other apart in pursuit of the throne. Machiavelli's advice. Embrace cruelty when necessary, deceive without hesitation, trust no one, spreads like a poison through the courts of Italy. What was meant as a guide for survival becomes a weapon of mass destruction, and soon, Italy is thrown into an era of political anarchy, where rulers rise and fall in the blink of an eye. As the political landscape unravels, Machiavelli's real motive is slowly revealed. He isn't just a philosopher or a disillusioned civil servant offering advice from the sidelines. In truth, he is a man who seeks to tear down the empire that betrayed him, a man who believes that the current order is corrupt beyond redemption. Machiavelli has become a revolutionary, working from the inside, crafting a vision for a new world order that can only emerge from the ruins of the old. But the ultimate revelation is even darker. Machiavelli is not merely aiming for the fall of the Medici or the aristocracy. He is trying to create a world where the very foundations of power itself are upended. His writings are a call for the masses to rise, for the very notion of monarchy and feudalism to be replaced with something far more radical. Machiavelli, the man who once served the state, is now trying to destroy it from within, believing that only by unleashing total chaos can a new, more just system emerge. The question remains. Is Machiavelli a visionary revolutionary, or is he a power-hungry schemer willing to plunge the world into ruin to get his way? As his teachings ignite chaos, Italy stands at the precipice of a new, unpredictable world, with Machiavelli at the center of it all, shaping history with his pen, even as the empire around him crumbles. 7. Shakespeare's deepest secrets. In the dimly lit theatres of Elizabethan London, William Shakespeare crafts his iconic plays, weaving tales of passion, betrayal, and ambition that captivate audiences far and wide. To the world, he is simply the greatest playwright of his age, an entertainer, a master of words. His characters are beloved figures of literature, the tragic Hamlet, the ambitious Macbeth, the star-crossed lovers of Romeo and Juliet. But the twist? Shakespeare's characters are not mere fiction, they are thinly veiled representations of the political power struggles and moral dilemmas shaking the very foundation of society. As Shakespeare's works grow in popularity, they become more than just plays, they evolve into mirrors of the rising tensions between the monarchy, the church, and the individual. His stories, filled with political intrigue and moral quandaries, reflect the turmoil of England itself. The monarchy, desperate to maintain its grip on power, sees in Shakespeare's works a delicate dance of loyalty and treachery, of duty and betrayal. The church, struggling to hold on to its dominance, finds in Shakespeare's work subtle critiques of its corrupt practices and its stranglehold over both faith and reason. But Shakespeare's true goal is far more complex and dangerous than merely entertaining his audience. What if his art was a subtle, deliberate act of rebellion? What if Shakespeare wasn't simply writing plays for the royal court or the public, but was instead planting ideas that could push society to the brink, ideas that would undermine the very systems of power and control that governed his world? In every character, in every plot twist, Shakespeare embeds secret messages, coded critiques of the monarchy, the church, and the very institutions that demand allegiance. Macbeth's bloody rise to power is not just about ambition. It's a commentary on the fragile nature of royalty itself, a warning about the consequences of unchecked power. Hamlet's indecision is not just a psychological study, it is a reflection of the moral conflict of a nation torn between old-world traditions and a rising desire for individual freedom. And Romeo and Juliet? Their tragic end is not just a love story, but a metaphor for the stifling constraints of family, duty, and societal expectations. Forces that trap individuals in a web of obligation. As the works grow in influence, Shakespeare begins to realize the power of his own creations. His plays are no longer just words on a page, they are tools of subtle subversion, capable of sparking debates, stirring dissent, and influencing the minds of both the elite and the common folk. What if Shakespeare isn't just reflecting the times? What if he is, in fact, orchestrating a silent rebellion through his art, deliberately manipulating the audience's perception of power, justice, and morality? The twist deepens. Shakespeare's plays are not just critiques of the monarchy or the church, they are blueprints for revolution. Hidden beneath layers of symbolism and allegory is a call to arms, urging the people to question the status quo, to challenge authority, and to fight for a more just world. But the ultimate question remains. Will his audience understand the message before it's too late? As Shakespeare watches his work spread across England, he is forced to confront the consequences of his secret rebellion. Will he be hailed as a visionary, or will his art push society to the brink of collapse? In the end, Shakespeare's deepest secret is that his plays were never just about entertainment, they were a subversive weapon, carefully crafted to ignite the flames of revolution, one word at a time. 8. The rise of individualism. In the heart of the Renaissance, a revolutionary idea begins to take root, the concept of the individual. No longer are people bound solely by the dictates of church, monarch, or tradition. The Renaissance champions the notion that the individual has the power to shape their own destiny, to define their purpose, and to challenge the forces that seek to control their lives. Artists, thinkers, and explorers break free from the constraints of feudalism and religion, ushering in an age where personal freedom becomes the ultimate prize. The twist? This newfound belief in personal autonomy, meant to empower individuals to reach for greatness, sparks a dangerous revolution, one that threatens to unravel the very foundations of traditional authority. As people embrace the power of self-determination, a ripple effect runs through Europe, undermining monarchies, challenging the dominance of the church, and defying the centuries-old social hierarchies that had once defined the world. The very idea of the individual, a single person capable of rewriting their fate, becomes a force to be reckoned with. But as the notion of personal freedom spreads across the continent, it transforms into something much more volatile than anyone anticipated. It becomes a weapon, a tool for both creativity and destruction. With this newfound power, people begin to question not only the authority of monarchs but the very fabric of society itself. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo use their individual genius to create works of art that challenge not just aesthetic conventions, but the entire worldview. Philosophers and scientists like Galileo begin to upend centuries of religious dogma, declaring that human reason and observation are the true paths to understanding. But the movement doesn't stop there. The rise of individualism begins to ignite a radical shift in power dynamics, with commoners, once subjugated by their class or faith, demanding more than just creative freedom. They begin to call for political change, social equality, and the right to challenge oppressive authorities. What was once a quiet rebellion of thought soon becomes a call to action, as people of all ranks start to question the legitimacy of kings, popes, and nobles. The establishment, the very forces of monarchies, the church, and aristocratic families, feels threatened. The power of the individual becomes a direct challenge to their long-held control over society. But the true danger lies in how quickly this individualism spirals into a movement that no one can control. Rebellions, revolts, and even civil wars begin to spread as the call for personal autonomy grows louder, driven by the belief that every person has the right to rule their own life and their own land. As the fires of revolution burn across Europe, the question arises, who will rise to lead this charge? Who will take the helm of a movement that has no single leader, no clear direction, and no definitive end? The power struggle is as much about ideas as it is about who controls the fate of the people. And with so much at stake, the cost of leadership becomes clearer. Will those who rise to power use the ideals of individualism for good, or will they become tyrants in their own right? In the end, the idea of the individual, meant to be a force for freedom and creativity, has become a double-edged sword, capable of both liberating and destroying entire nations. The question looms. Is the world ready for the rise of individualism, or will it tear apart the very fabric of society? 9. The dark side of innovation. The Renaissance is a time of groundbreaking progress, a moment when new ideas and inventions begin to transform the world. From the printing press, which brings revolutionary knowledge to the masses, to Galileo's telescope, which reveals the mysteries of the universe, to Da Vinci's flying machines, which promise to lift humanity to new heights, innovation seems like the key to a brighter future. These inventions open doors to new possibilities, new ways of thinking, and new realms of discovery. But with every breakthrough, a darker side begins to emerge. The twist? Each of these innovations is not just a tool for progress, it is a potential weapon. As these inventions make their way into the hands of brilliant minds, they also fall into the hands of those who seek to control them. Powerful factions, royal families, the church, and secret societies vie for dominion over these new technologies, determined to harness their power to maintain or extend their control over society. What began as the promise of enlightenment becomes a battle for dominance, with these factions willing to do anything, including betrayal, assassination, and espionage, to ensure that the future of innovation falls into their hands. The printing press, which was once seen as a force for democratizing knowledge, becomes a tool for propaganda. The church, terrified of losing its monopoly on knowledge and religious influence, seeks to control what is printed, suppressing ideas that challenge its authority. Books are censored, authors silenced, and intellectuals hunted, not for the content of their thoughts, but for the potential to undermine the church's hold on the masses. Meanwhile, royal families see the printing press as a means of solidifying their power, printing decrees that elevate their rule and suppress any rebellion or dissent. As Galileo's telescope reveals the truth about the universe, it threatens not just the church but the very nature of power itself. The Vatican, which has long defined what is considered truth, finds its authority increasingly questioned by Galileo's discoveries. The church's grip on scientific knowledge weakens, and as it attempts to silence him, secret societies, those with their own agendas, begin to capitalize on the knowledge Galileo has unlocked. They understand the telescope's potential, not just for astronomy, but for weaponizing the way humanity understands the cosmos, controlling the narrative of reality itself. Meanwhile, Da Vinci's inventions, meant to inspire flight and advance human ingenuity, are coveted by everyone from the Italian city-states to the militaries of Europe. The concept of flight offers more than freedom, it promises unparalleled power. Armed with Leonardo's designs for war machines and flying devices, powerful factions scramble to get their hands on these blueprints. They are willing to do anything to claim this innovation, even if it means betraying allies or sacrificing innocence to secure the secrets hidden within Da Vinci's notebooks. The battle for control of these innovations is not a battle of intellect, but of power and survival. Who will control the future of humanity? The inventors may have dreamed of a world changed for the better, but their creations, now in the hands of rulers and shadowy figures, could either usher in a golden age or ignite a world war. As factions clash over the control of knowledge, it becomes clear that progress comes at a cost, and the true price of innovation is not just the advancement of humanity, but the dark and dangerous forces it unleashes in the pursuit of control. 10. The final collapse. The Renaissance, a period of unparalleled intellectual and artistic achievement, once promised to be a time of enlightenment, a golden age where knowledge, creativity, and individualism would shape the world for the better. The works of artists, scientists, and philosophers sparked a rebirth of thought, casting off the shackles of medieval superstition and bringing forth an era of progress. But as the old power structures crumble under the weight of new ideas, something darker begins to take shape. New forces rise from the ashes, more dangerous and more insidious than the ones they replaced. The twist? The very innovations that were meant to liberate humanity become the instruments of its undoing. The printing press, which once spread the seeds of revolution and enlightenment, becomes just as capable of spreading misinformation and division. What began as a tool for the free exchange of ideas soon becomes a weapon of propaganda, used by monarchs, the church, and rival factions to control public opinion, stoke fear, and manipulate the masses. What was meant to empower the people now undermines their ability to discern truth from lies. Rebellion spreads, but so does chaos, and the world becomes increasingly fragmented as competing ideologies tear apart societies. The age of exploration, which was heralded as the dawn of progress, reveals its darker side. As new lands are discovered, the very concept of progress is called into question. The exploration of the Americas leads to colonization and the destruction of indigenous cultures, all in the name of empire and expansion. The riches gained from this conquest fuel the ambitions of European powers, but they also deepen global inequalities and sow the seeds of centuries of exploitation and conflict. What was once seen as a quest for knowledge and wealth becomes a quest for global domination, leading to devastation in the lands discovered. Galileo's discoveries, which challenged centuries of dogma, were supposed to revolutionize human understanding. The heliocentric theory could have brought about an era of scientific enlightenment, a world where reason and observation reigned supreme. But the twist is that these new truths, once unveiled, also give rise to new tyrannies of thought. Science, once a force for progress, begins to clash with religion, politics, and social systems in violent and destructive ways. Instead of uniting humanity in a shared pursuit of knowledge, Galileo's discoveries spark philosophical wars between competing schools of thought, each claiming the mantle of truth. By the end of the Renaissance, the world is no longer a beacon of enlightenment but a landscape of fractured societies where progress has come at the cost of human suffering and social division. The very innovations that were meant to uplift humanity now fuel new conflicts, from religious wars to colonial struggles, from political upheavals to the rise of new tyrants. The Renaissance leaves behind a legacy of shattered dreams, a world that has advanced in knowledge but regressed in human unity. The final collapse is imminent. As the Renaissance ideals of individual freedom, scientific discovery, and artistic expression clash with the old and new power structures, the world teeters on the brink of an entirely new conflict. A war is coming, one that will define the modern age, a war not just of nations, but of ideas, ideologies, and futures. What was once the dawn of progress is now the precursor to an age of unprecedented turmoil, and the world stands at the precipice of a new, more dangerous era. The Renaissance has, in the end, created not just a world of opportunity, but one that is irrevocably torn apart by the very innovations it unleashed.